Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization program. This is the program that showcases independent producers, their productions, and provides a forum for discussing issues which affect independent television producers here in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, there.
All right, caught me micing up. Welcome to the program. This is the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. We are aired second Wednesday of every month, and as the lead-in said, we air programs having to do with the local area, sometimes national, and bring in producers. Tonight we don't have any producer to talk to, but we do have with me tonight is Richard Carpenter, and he brought a guest in that he's going to introduce right now.
Okay, the guest, finally, we got Solve in here. And that's what I'm anxious to know about, more about it than some distant word that they're going to be down at the beach cleaning up. I really want to find out more about it. So Quentin Bauer from Solve is our guest today. I'm looking forward to really hearing all about it from the ground up. So I appreciate all this stuff, and I know we can't get it all on the screen and all that, but we'll go ahead. And why don't you go ahead and talk about yourself and your relationship with Solve and what you do?
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for inviting me here tonight.
Sure.
Really
Does Solve have a meaning, or is it just...
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited here to talk to you and talk to you a little bit about Solve and maybe what it means. And yeah, it used to stand for Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism.
That's right.
But
That's
as you'll
it.
hear,
That's right.
as you'll hear, we've changed over the years, and so we've recently added the E to the end. And so yeah, I'm happy to tell you guys all about kind of how we've transitioned and evolved into a real environmentally focused organization that's trying to make a difference with volunteers out there.
How long have you been?
So I've been with Solve for 7 years.
And it's been around for a lot longer
and
than
it's
that.
been around, yeah. So we're actually,
Decades.
it's our 45th anniversary next year. It's the 30th anniversary of our beach cleanups and the 25th anniversary of our Solve It Earth Day event. So next year is a really big year.
Where does the support for all that coming? Are you wired into the government a lot, or?
Yeah,
foundations.
People used to think that we were actually a government agency because we were founded by Governor Tom McCall in 1969.
Okay.
But we're a nonprofit organization, kind of have a diverse funding source between individuals, just gracious individuals donating to us.
Is it a membership or just donations?
Just donations, yeah. We don't have a formal membership program, but we have a pretty large donor pool spread all over Oregon, from small donors, giving us $1 or $2, all the way up to our major donors.
I thought I saw a list.
Yeah, we've got some lists in our annual report there of all the donors. But yeah, it's a mix of individuals, foundations, corporate sponsorships. So we've got some businesses that sponsor our big one-day events, and then government. We do have some government contracts for our watershed restoration projects and some other programs.
Zipcar even.
Yeah, we have.
Bank, yeah.
Yep, we've got some great board members representing of different companies around
the
area.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been there 7 years. I'm the statewide team leader, so I oversee our programs that cover all of Oregon. Actually started off as a volunteer in high school, going out to the beach cleanup. We had an ecology club. One of our big things we look forward to is going camping at Fort Stevens twice a year and going and cleaning up the beach while we were out there.
Oh yeah, up there. Okay.
Isn't that where Lewis and Clark wintered over in Fort Stevens?
I think so. Yeah, my Oregon history is getting a little losing it a little bit now.
So much.
That's right. That's right. So, do you try to figure out how to do the whole beach? I mean, Oregon Beach.
Yeah. So we do. We cover the whole beach twice a year with those beach cleanups, and we have great partnership with Oregon State Parks, which manages most of the beach. And we've got these great volunteer leaders that have adopted different parts of the coast. A lot of them are park rangers that help out as well, and so they lead the volunteer events for us, and that's how we cover the coast. We have 45 check-in sites that folks can go out to. So, in Fort Stevens, it's the park rangers there, and Cannon Beach, it's this wonderful volunteer, Janae, who just does a great job getting the whole community out and having treats and coffee for everybody ready and making sure everyone's safe.
Caravan people over from inland too, though, don't you?
Yeah, we don't have a formal kind of bus or something, which would be cool. Yeah, if anyone's got a bus, that'd be great. But mainly folks kind of, if we help them carpool, but we get a lot of people who take it as a day out to the beach and also to give back. But it's actually, we've ranged from last spring, it was like 75 degrees in Cannon Beach, beautiful days, to the fall beach cleanup. We actually had to cancel or postpone this year because it was during the giant rainstorm back in September. So the weather is kind of really hit or miss. So that impacts how many people we get out there.
Do you reschedule or not?
Yeah, that one we were able to reschedule almost all of the cleanups. A lot of them just finished up at the end of October.
Okay. I almost want to say, how do they get involved? They need to call.
Yeah, so we make it so easy for you to get involved. The easiest way is to check our website, where we have an ongoing list of events. And so a lot of people know about the big one-day events, but any Saturday morning you can go out and there's volunteer events. Mainly in the Portland area, yeah. But it's just kind of, we're there helping people lead these volunteer events whenever it works best for them. So it's really kind of depends on the particular Saturday, but almost every Saturday there'll be some event that you can sign up on the website. You can give us a call. So the website is www.solveoregon.org.
Is that with the E or without
the E? SOLVE Oregon.org. Or you can give us a call, 503-844-9571. And we can help you sign up there.
That's right. It's so easy to look it up, but otherwise I wish we had it on the screen. But that's all right. It's too easy to look up.
No, with the days of Google.
Yeah.
It's just easy to Google it and it's right there.
Yeah, but there's just multiple ways to get involved. You can come out to those existing events, just 9 o'clock most Saturdays, get out there and volunteer, or we're there to help people lead their own events. So if you got maybe your local neighborhood has a trash problem, people are littering, you want to go and get folks to pick it up, we're there to help you do that. Your local park maybe has some blackberry that's grown out of control. We have a system set up to get volunteers out there to help you. So you can get involved that way. We also have Stream Team Captain program where you can become a leader and lead our tree planting events. So just, lots of great ways to get involved.
And you're doing an awful lot of different things too. So do you I'm sure you mentioned this, but just in passing, you partner like with the city and with the Forest Service and a lot of different larger groups.
Yeah, because we don't manage, or own any property or land, where really in our mission is to, do projects to improve the environment, we have to partner on all of the projects. So usually it's with a local parks district that has work that needs to be done, or with the city if it's cleaning up a neighborhood. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, but our mission is to bring Oregonians together to improve the environment and build a legacy of stewardship. And so it's really those kind of three key parts. We want to bring Oregonians together, young and old, rich and poor, folks that maybe haven't interacted together, out volunteering to improve the environment. So, we've got some pretty heavy environmental issues in Oregon, but a chunk of them can be, anyone can get out there and volunteer and help improve on those things. So we want folks out there on projects, and then we want to build a legacy of stewardship. So we don't want to be cleaning up the beach forever and ever. Hopefully people stop littering, people will be responsible out when they're out on the ocean and not have their debris go overboard. And so we want to kind of ingrain in people to not litter, to plant native plants in their yard, remove invasive plants when they get a chance. So that's that legacy of stewardship there. And
right.
People,
you're going to have to get people young.
Exactly, yeah, that's why I was just going to mention that. Over half so we have 35,000 volunteers each year that come out and help us out.
Okay.
And almost half of those are under 18. So we've got a green team program in Portland where we work directly with high school, middle school, and elementary school kids, get them out planting trees and restoring things. And then for the beach cleanups and events like that, just get tons of Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, church groups, just lots of youth out there.
Where do they get the incentive to come? I mean, especially these ones that are 17, 16, 15. I'm trying to think what would get them to motivate them rather
to get them out from the video game.
I know. I think it's a range of things. I think when I was in high school, it was that I did have that connection to the environment and caring about the environment. So it's through that ecology club that I got involved. And I definitely meet kids like that are just passionate about the environment, and that's why they're out there. But then there are folks that are in scout groups or in a church group or out with their friends, service groups. So, I mean, you'd be amazed. Sure, we read all about kids kind of stuck inside playing video games, but and that's definitely an issue we need to address. But can't forget that there are a lot of youth out there that are kind of gung-ho and doing this great work.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's great. I remember we used to not even think about that years ago. You just made a
did
mess. You just strew things all. You almost, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but people just would leave stuff all over. And you're right, trying to get it ingrained in everybody, then that would put you guys out of business.
Yeah, well, yeah, we
That'd
want to
be
go. I mean, we
great.
want to go out of business eventually. That would be
Yeah,
and move on to something else.
But there's still, you know, trails to be fixed and
There'll
trees to be
always be
planted.
something.
There's always a lot to do.
Again, when they go to the website, like say, if I or someone went to the website, would I be able to find a place where volunteers are showing up and you can help do stuff here?
Yep, on that main site, you just click Get Involved, and
Oh,
there'll be
okay.
a Find a Volunteer event calendar there, and you can just scroll down and find your events that are coming up. But you can also just give us a call, and happy to talk you through and find the event that'll fit with you
Okay,
the best.
that's good. I see some of the stuff, invasive plant species. You know, I had a producer at the Tuolumne Valley that was involved with Terwilliger, the whole area, and one of their objectives was to get rid of that ivy that kept going up the trees. Is that
It's a never-ending problem over there in Washington Park and all
Yeah.
the places, Forest Hills or whatever that is over there.
So that's a big part of what we do. Yeah,
That
ivy
is?
removal, blackberry removal. They're kind of big invasives that we see around here. And so we have projects we actually have a restoration site at Lewis and Clark College, kind of bordering Tryon Creek there, not far from Terwilliger, and we've been removing ivy there for years. We've got projects at Tryon Creek State Park. We work closely with the Friends of Tryon Creek State Park to work with their volunteer coordinator and help them get volunteers out there removing ivy. And you mentioned Forest Park Conservancy, Portland Parks, work with them on various volunteer projects to get folks out there removing the ivy.
okay?
So you know, you mentioned earlier before the program with the Forest Service that you do trail work. So you repair trails. Do you also create trails?
Yeah, trails are kind of little out of our focus. We definitely do, and typically the way we work with trails is making sure that the invasive plants that are around a trail get removed, or if there's litter that gets removed. The kind of 4 project focuses that we have are planting new native trees and shrubs, removing non-native invasive plants, picking up litter, and monitoring and maintenance of restoration sites. So yeah, we do some work on trails, but there's some great local organizations that are really focused on trails. So
that.
we kind of leave it to them, but we're happy to direct folks to them more if they're working on trail projects.
You know, Fred Scheit, one of our producers here, producers mostly to do with health shows, that's what he did. He volunteered to take care of trails and the places where people stop
Yeah.
at the trails. So there's somebody out there that doing that kind of thing. Planting native species. We have the tree planting people here, but they're from. No, they're not necessarily to do with the city, but are they separate from you? Obviously.
You mean in the forest, tree planters?
What?
Friends of
I'm
trees?
just looking at this.
Yeah, so we definitely plant, a big focus of ours is planting the native trees and shrubs. If you're going to remove that ivy, if you just left it again, the ivy's probably going to come back. You need to
might
replace
anyway.
it. Yeah, it's probably going to come back anyway. But
It
you want
takes
to
a
replace,
while.
yeah, you want to replace it with native trees and shrubs, and eventually they might shade them out, or that's your main goal, is to make it so it's not just a monoculture of just ivy, that you've got some new plants. So you want to go back and plant back in. And volunteers' favorite activity is planting trees, without a doubt. Especially you're talking about kids. Kids love planting trees. They want to
Really?
name their tree, talk to their tree, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So tree plantings take a little bit more effort. You got to make sure you have a plan to take care of them. You got to come up with the money to get the trees and everything. But we love doing tree planting projects, and people just really enjoy knowing that, you plant this tree today and it's going to be here for years and years to come.
And generations, hopefully. Well, there's also the ground cover that you need to put in, or the salal or whatever, the native ground cover that as you say, couldn't compete neck for neck with ivy, but once you create the conditions for it, it might be able to hold its own.
Yeah, and I mean, native trees are really important for reducing erosion, providing shade over a stream to cool down the water for fish to be able to survive, as well as providing wildlife habitat. So We definitely do enjoy doing those tree planting events.
And I like to say it'd probably be the most children, teenagers would probably think more of that than anything else. Pulling up
yeah.
ivy isn't still so glamorous, but planting a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think beach cleanup on a sunny day is number one for
Yeah,
volunteers, and
right,
then number
right.
2 would be tree planting on a non-rainy day.
Not you mentioned beach cleanup. Do you have any statistics on how much? So you say you on one day you do the whole coast.
Mm-hmm.
So you have any statistics on how much garbage you guys haul out in one year?
Oh man, I don't have that handy. I think
Tons,
45,000 pounds jumps out of my head. I think it's probably around
20
that. So
tons.
20 tons of debris probably on our beach cleanup. We usually have about 3,000 to 4,000 volunteers out there.
And you
So,
have local landfills that take it.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship with the local coast haulers. All the haulers up and down the coast donate their services and disposal.
Really?
For that.
Because they
They've
have
been
to
doing that
haul
for
it and they have to
years,
dump
so-
it.
Yeah, so that
And-
really helps us out
And
a
that's
lot.
expensive these days. So they all donate that.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, you're getting Oregonians together. That's part of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's very true. Yeah.
Do you have a nursery or anything like that? Because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking about Portland. You know, they got a nursery out in 60th Division.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so do you have something like that?
Yeah, it'd be great if we had a nursery. What we actually do is we either purchase plants from wholesale growers, and we have a great relationship with Clean Water Services out in Washington County, which is the utility water district out there, and they provide funding for Solve, and also they have a giant nursery where they provide trees and shrubs for nonprofits and government agencies and things. So they provide all the plants for our Washington County
That was-
work.
Like you said, you didn't have land where you could do all that. So
Yeah, yeah.
So
What we
you
do,
just
we
deal with
partner.
other
We partner.
people.
Yeah, we partner
Sure.
with folks. So whether we do some work on private property, folks that live right along a stream and want some help restoring their property, but also just a lot of public lands.
Sure.
Things.
Well, I would think that your motto would be "Don't reinvent the wheel." Other people are doing these things and have the land, so the whole idea is to get Oregonians together and take advantage of what other people are doing and put that into the
Yeah.
mix.
what's non-native invasive plants in Oaks Bottom? Is that, or do you know?
Yeah, that's so we've got
just
a
to have
big event coming up on Saturday, November 23rd, Family Volunteer Day.
Okay.
That's a national day of service. We're trying to get families out volunteering together.
A National Day of Service
Yeah.
in what way? What?
So it's just kind of draws the attention of the community to, this is a great day, get out and volunteer. We want folks volunteering every Saturday, of course, but this is kind of a one day to get the word out that volunteering as a family is really great. So we got 5 different events that Saturday, the 23rd, and one of them is removing non-native plants at Oaks Bottom, which is over kind of by Oaks Park.
Yeah.
Here in Portland, and so we're partnering with Portland Parks on that one. They have a Portland Parks Nature program where they lead volunteer events. So we're partnering with them to get folks out volunteering. I think we already got 25 people signed up to go out to that event, so that'll be a good one.
And there's other events besides that one, though.
Yeah.
What are some of those?
Yeah, so we've also got a tree planting out at Beaver Creek out in Troutdale.
Beaver Creek
Beaver
and
Creek.
Troutdale.
It's right where the Sandy goes into the Columbia River, kind of Sandy River Delta.
Right where they're building that overpass.
Yep, so it's just to the east of the overpass. There's a creek, Beaver Creek, that runs right along
I didn't know
the
that.
Sandy River there.
Didn't
And
know
yeah,
there
it's
was one there.
one place I've seen beaver. It kind of tucked back there. And so we're going to be planting trees out there. We got a tree planting out at Council Creek in Cornelius out western Washington County. And then out at Tryon Creek, we'll be removing invasive plants out at the state park, working with the Friends of Tryon Creek State Park.
So you're planting trees around creeks. What specific types of trees are you planting? Like
Ooh.
willows or?
Yeah, it's a mix. So yeah, we usually plant willows kind of right along the creek, cedar trees, Douglas fir, Nootka rose is a shrub that we plant a lot of, snowberry is a shrub, salal you mentioned, we plant
Sure.
that. So it kind of depends on the different sites.
Mainly for
to
erosion,
plant
I
in
would
that.
think.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of kind of controlling erosion along the creek, providing shade right along the creek. A lot of it's for shade because we've cut down and removed a lot of
Keep
the
the
native
water cool.
vegetation. So we got to keep the water cool for salmon and healthy salmon habitat. And then also just wildlife habitat around the creek and riparian area.
Well, the fact that there's beaver there is a good sign.
Yeah, you got to plant a
I'm
few extra
surprised.
trees because the got to give some up for the beaver. But we have the kids, students out there on our green team, caging a good chunk of the plants to protect it from the beaver, and then kind of let the beaver have some of it as well, because they're a healthy part of it.
So are the beavers, are they building dams, or they have to be controlled to a great degree, because they'll be building dams, and I mean the things that they do are great,
Yeah.
but not necessarily every place that there's people around.
Yeah, I'm not fully into the details of that site, but I know, at some sites you can kind of let them be and let them build their dams, but then there's other areas where they kind of come into conflict with human settlement and home building and things where it's more of an issue.
You know, after they plant everything on the creeks, you're not supposed to be able to touch or do anything within 200 feet of that creek or waterway. Do you know? There is a thing to do with that.
What do you mean after it's planted?
I mean, you can't come to a creek or river and say, let's take these trees down so when we build a cabin we can look down. You aren't able to mess with those trees without talking to the county or something like that. And
Yeah, generally there's rules about doing
Yeah.
any sort of development right along the stream to
Well,
protect this sort of
You can't even
work,
take
so
a
we're not
tree out of
needing
your
to do
parking
this,
strip
yeah.
without getting a permit, or plant one.
Oh,
So yeah, I can imagine it's even more stringent along the creeks.
I know sometimes people have taken down real good trees in the city. I read once where the city really got mad at the guy.
And once it's
Shouldn't
down,
have done that.
Yeah, well, maybe they can always say they didn't know, but
Well, sure, something amazing about all this stuff. Rock Creek, is that out
that's out past Beaverton on
on the freeway?
So there's a couple.
Sunset.
There's a couple of rock creeks, and we've actually
That's
done a
why
project
I
on the area
asked.
that you're talking about out there, like I think it's 185th, kind of by PCC Rock Creek
Right.
campus.
Yeah.
So we actually worked with PCC Rock Creek a few years ago to do a restoration project there. It's really great. We're actually working with them again on another project. But that Rock Creek that we have a tree planting coming up on is actually out in Clackamas County, flows into the Clackamas River.
whereabouts
Kind of
exactly?
Happy Valley.
Oh, okay.
Area
Okay, you're saying
there.
another Rock Creek.
Yeah. You'd think they could come up with new
And,
names for
and
this
it'd
to be
be
less confusing.
in
but
Clackamas County more.
What's different counties?
kind of east, so right before, kind of Damascus, Clackamas area there. It's like 172nd and 224, 212 area.
Yeah, you can go all the way out Foster and get to that area.
Yep, or
yeah.
Yep. So I'll have to.
So is that what this is? Friends of Rock Creek here?
Yeah, so we've got a
Student newsletter?
That's a student newsletter. So Clackamas High School Green Team works a lot on Rock Creek. So they've put together each of our green teams. We've got about, I don't know, how many students we're working with. Just a whole lot of green teams, probably 30 different green teams around the Portland metro area. So these are different schools and school groups that adopt different sites and come out. So my old high school, Westland High School's got a green team, Clackamas High School. There's Rachel Carson Environmental Middle School, which is actually out
really?
in Beaverton near
yeah.
that other Rock Creek. And they adopt a site, and we have staff and volunteers out there helping them plant trees and do water quality testing. It's a great way to learn about science and about the environment while getting your hands dirty and making a difference.
Yeah, science, specifically ecology, how everything fits together and how, you mess with one, you mess with it all. And that's something that they're not taught in school.
And I mean, that's how I got excited to do this sort of work. My teacher in high school, Jim Hartman, who's still there and one of our green team teachers at Westland High School, he
Okay.
really inspired us to get involved in the environment. We went out and had Wetlands Wednesday out there battling blackberry every Wednesday in class, and he's still hard at work out there. And a good chunk of my classmates have gone on to do environmental careers. So.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so you can really see
Well,
how
that's-
getting kids involved when they're young really excite them, and they can see what they're learning in the classroom. When they learn about ecology, when they learn about the water cycle and wildlife habitat, they can see why this matters. They go out on the creek and can see how what they're learning can actually be used in the field.
Well, that gives me a lot of hope for the future, because a lot of like you were saying, we used to just throw it away. In the Rocky Mountains, they just dumped all the tailings from all the minings, and it went down both sides of those mountains into the watersheds on either side, and you know, the solution to pollution is dilution, that type of attitude, and it caught up with us eventually. And it's nice to know that we have organization like Friends of Beaver Creek, Friends of Rock Creek, Friends of Tryon Creek, and that are working and bringing young people on board to move forward to get away from that, because there's still that attitude, especially corporate attitude, for resource extraction and everything else be damned, and that's what's brought us to this point. And if it wasn't for organizations like yours, we'd be living in a desert, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean,
maybe
we're
not
just
so much here,
yeah.
but
We're just so lucky in Oregon that there's so many people who care about the environment,
Right.
whether it's a deep concern for the health of the environment, or just because they're big mountain climbers or kayakers or fishermen or hunters, or whatever it is. We got kind of a special thing in Oregon where people care about the outdoors for one reason or another. We can all
Those
get
people
behind.
are the ones that are going to see things strewn all over the place and become more conscious of it. See, I'm going to make a trip out there and just pick up maybe or something like that. I know.
well, they take it personal, because if you have a connection to a piece of land, then you're going to take it personal when it's being mistreated, polluted, or whatever, and you're going to want to make it better. I mean, we don't. None of these creeks that you're talking about have salmon. They probably don't even have trout, but they do have ecosystems there. With crustaceans and different bugs, and it's a living thing, and it's great that kids can learn that. Do you have is this, like, say you go out with Friends of Beaver Creek, or you go out with Friends of Rock Creek? Now, in what capacity do you go out with them, and how do they relate to what's going on?
Yeah, so those groups are actually the student groups, so the different school groups, and so we would go out with them, with their teacher usually once or twice a month, with our green team staff, and there's usually a really strong education component and then a strong service component.
That you are providing
So
that.
That we're providing that, yeah. So we're learning about, teaching them about macroinvertebrates, like you mentioned, kind of the bugs living in the stream. So we're talking about why that's important, how they can indicate the health of the stream, and then they go and test the water for how healthy is the macroinvertebrate. What are macroinvertebrates in here? What's the water? And then we can share that information to other kind of scientist people that can use it to help improve the stream. But yeah, we work with just kind of general kind of community groups. I work with a guy, his name's Steve Meissen, out in Westland, and he found it's just local park along the Willamette River called Burnside Park there in Westland. And it was covered in that ivy you talked about, growing out of control. And he said, man, I need to do something about that. He lived about 2 blocks away. And we've helped him every third Saturday or second Saturday. He's out there leading a Solve volunteer group, removing that ivy. And I think it's been a few years now. It took him about 5 years, but got rid of all the ivy off the trees and off the ground too. So it's almost an ivy-free. Some still coming back here and there, and he's got to maintain it. But
That's heavy work, 'cause you got to pry that stuff with a screwdriver off the tree.
Yeah.
Well, don't you just cut it? That's
Right, and it will die,
Totally.
but you want to get it out of there. You need
Yeah.
because
As much as you
they'll
can.
live right off the tree.
Oh,
They'll put roots right into the tree, and
Yeah, I
depending
mean-
on what kind of tree it is.
Yeah, generally the way we do it is I think it's called the lifesaver method, where you cut it at shoulder height and at knee height, and you kind of disconnect it from the ground, and it'll grow for a little while, but eventually it'll die off, and hopefully the tree will be okay. Unfortunately, sometimes there's so much on there, like you're saying, prying it off. You got to pry it off that it can become so heavy that it pulls the tree down, and unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. But luckily, you don't have to get every last bit off the tree. It's kind of disconnected from the ground. And what you're trying to do is kind of free the tree enough that it can keep growing, and that new plants and native plants can grow back around it, even if there's going to be some ivy that comes back.
from a technical standpoint, okay, here you have a tree and you're pulling the ivy away from it. You can't plant right next to that tree.
Yeah, no, you generally don't plant right next to the tree, but you can plant pretty close. If there's shrubs like the salal you mentioned, that's one that you typically would find if you're just hiking in the up in Mount Hood. You'd
ferns.
see a little sword
Fern,
fern,
yeah,
licorice fern, maiden fern, salal, snowberry. Those are things that get pretty close. to
Fern's
the
a good
tree.
thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, they're all native, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure there are probably some non-native ferns, but most ferns you see, are really good.
Okay.
yeah, and an Oregon grape, which is Oregon's what, shrub or
Flower,
or
actually,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So Oregon grape, there's Oregon grape that gets 6 feet. There's Oregon grape that are ground cover. So there's, you know, I've gone through fields of them up in the woods on hikes, and that's something you could use to you know, keep ivy at bay. It may not work totally. You got to get in there and help a little bit. And there's other things besides ivy too. I mean, is there anything that you folks deal with other than ivy?
Yeah, I mean,
That is
obviously blackberry is a huge
the
one.
Himalayan,
so Himalayan blackberry.
yeah.
So you'll see fields of blackberry. It's a great example of why invasive plants are a problem, because they just grow out of control. Once you've kind of disturbed an area, blackberry will come in and grow. So that one, you know, it's even harder than. So ivy is pretty easy. You kind of wrap it up and pull it out and cut it off the tree.
It ain't stabbing you
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, but then blackberry, yeah, it's stabbing you. You got to cut it, then you got to dig up the root, and then you got to plant something on top of
Right,
it. So,
because
so that's a big one. Clematis that kind of grows and tangles up tree.
Yeah, I have that written down here. Clematis,
Morning
yeah.
glory,
Bindweed.
kind of bindweed. Yeah, there's. Japanese knotweed is kind of a nasty one. That's the one we try not to use herbicides at all. That's why we get volunteers out there to do it. But Japanese knotweed, you can dig down. I've seen roots that go 15 feet underground. They've dug
Holy
down,
smokes.
and so
Sure
you end
what
up
it
doing
is.
more
I'll
damage
have to look at it.
you'd solve by digging it out. So that one we kind of inject sometimes one by one into the stems and let it die off. But yeah, that's a particularly nasty one.
Now these are all invasives, I mean they were native somewhere.
Yeah, so yeah, Japanese knotweed probably from Japan,
But the-
Himalayan blackberry from the Himalayas. But they in that environment there are probably some natural kind of
Yeah,
predators
checks and balances
checks and
there,
balances,
yeah.
and here just for whatever reason they can just grow unchecked, and so that's kind of we call them non-native invasive plants. So the invasive part is that they kind of grow out of control and cause problems, and the non-native part means they're not from here. Where you've got plenty of non-natives that aren't invasives, you know, like your rose in your front yard. You know, it's probably
All
from
your-
somewhere
all your-
else, but it
all
didn't.
your hybrids,
yeah,
yeah.
they don't grow out of control and take over things, so they're not invasive.
Do you
but-
deal with any invasives in the animal kingdom?
We don't. It's kind of a tricky subject. You don't want. We're not a
Really?
big fan of having volunteers out there killing nutria with their bare hands or anything like that. So we do some. I think we've hired some people to trap nutria at some of our restoration
What
sites
is
where
that,
they're
nutria?
causing. What's that?
What is that? Nutria?
So a nutria is kind of like a big rat. In
Yeah,
some ways, it looks
right,
like a beaver,
right,
but
right.
it's got kind of a rat tail and big teeth, and so those can do a lot of damage where they dig into the side of creeks and cause erosion. And so we have had to get rid of them at some sites.
There's some
Whereas
And
beavers
yeah, I
are
think there's
good.
frogs, and yeah, there's some fish.
Well, I was
but
thinking.
yeah,
I
beavers are good.
think mainly what I was thinking about. You see the signs on the freeway that you got to wash your boat before you come
Oh
in.
yes, aquatic invasive.
Aquatic,
for sure.
like about barnacles or things
Yeah,
like
zebra
that.
mussel.
There you go,
and
that
there's
was
another
it.
mussel I can't think of right now. But yeah, those are major issues, and our focus on that is kind of education, letting people know about invasives. Yeah, the whole wash your boat. You know, wash your boots if you're out there walking around in different waterways. But we don't get involved in the actual
But
getting
education's
rid of the
important.
invasive.
though.
But education's the most important part, especially with these invasives that haven't got a foothold here yet. But we're worried that they're going to get transported in.
No, they
from
can
somewhere
take
else.
over complete lakes and things,
Oh yeah.
People keep bringing stuff in from different places.
and not even being aware of it, like with these
Yeah,
mussels.
that's right. And they think, oh, this plant will be really good over here.
Yeah.
And, maybe not.
Yeah, well, that is why education is just such an important
Right,
thing of
right.
everything we do. So we did a new strategic plan a few years ago, and in it we wanted to make sure that at every solve event you go to, that you leave with some sort of education, understanding of why you're doing what you're doing.
Oh.
So all the stuff we've been talking about tonight, you know, we want folks to know why we're planting the native trees, how it helps things, why we're removing the invasive plants, why they're a problem, and then, you know, for litter, you know, a lot of people know litter, it's bad because kind of makes things look dirty and doesn't look good, but they might not be as aware as of the problems it causes for wildlife, where you've got fish and birds eating the cigarette butts or eating little pieces of plastic, and then their stomachs fill up with plastic, and they stop eating, and then they die.
And their
That's,
intestines
that's
are-
exactly
or,
right. That
or
was
turtles eating plastic bags, or birds getting tangled in fishing line. So we really want people to kind of understand that part of it. And people then have a better volunteer experience, I think, as well, when they kind of understand all of the information around why they're doing the project.
Yeah, because everybody's heard about what is it, a mass of plastic out in the ocean as big as Texas or some damn thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard of that.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of smaller scale issues with it.
Yeah, the Pacific Gyre just out there in the ocean. You know, it's not like you could walk across it or even maybe see it, but just floating like just below the surface, there's a lot of microplastics. So, you know, plastic's one of those things that never really goes away. It just breaks into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. So, yeah, there's a big area out there that has just covered in these little microplastics, and slowly, you know, some of it breaks off and then washes ashore, and that's kind of when we clean it up. So the whole goal is, you know, to educate people so they're not adding to this problem while also picking up all the stuff when it washes ashore.
What is the majority of what you pick up of that 45 tons at the coast?
Yeah, I mean,
Is
not
it
probably not
plastic?
weight-wise, but cigarette butts by far #1 item folks find.
Well, I can remember when I smoked, you know, you
Yeah.
flip the filter, you know, for years.
Well,
Hadn't
because it
smoked
seems
for
like it's
years.
paper, right? You know, it seems like it's kind of papery, but it's really a lot of it's plastic, like some kind of shredded up plastic.
And it
And
doesn't-
that's why you see cigarette butts hanging around so long on the sidewalk, is because it's not paper. It's something, you know, a plastic that sticks around more. So plastic's a big one. Plastic bags, just little bits of like people lighting off fireworks out at the coast on the 4th of July. We work with a lot of the cities to do cleanups afterwards to kind of clean up the
Yeah.
mess people leave behind. But then a lot of the little plastic from that gets left behind, and then fishing
Fishing.
line.
I would
and
think a lot of
fishing
fast
debris.
food remnants
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I know by my house you can see there's the convenience store, and then there's a trail of trash from the convenience store to the nearest storm drain. So it's not just our beaches or natural areas that have this problem. It's you know, our city streets and sidewalks that have a lot of trash that end up in the storm drain and then in the river
And then,
and the ocean.
especially when
So-
there's wind.
Oh yeah, yep. I'm kind of on the east side of Portland where we get a lot of the east winds and things are just blowing out of people's trash cans or
Yeah,
blowing
I'm
down
glad
the
to
road.
see that they're dealing with them plastic bags too, because you'll see them things 30 feet up in
Mm,
the tree
mm-hmm.
stuck. You know, they just get everywhere.
No doubt. You ever say I find them buried in the sand where you like going down a foot and your plastic bag is buried under the sand. So,
Yeah, the only thing that really destroys plastic bags is the sun.
yeah,
Plastic.
just
I mean, in the
sun and
ground, it'll be
time,
there
yeah.
forever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's so much that little bitty pieces of information like that kids aren't going to get that in school unless they specifically go, you know, become friends of such and such, or involved with an organization like yours. You provide an incredible service, not just for the kids but for everybody around them, because then they're going to, as you said, you become environmental stewards, or they come and become make their living in the environment somehow. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, we really hope it'll be that spark, you know, for the students that we work with to get involved in this sort of thing. But you know, the projects we involve art in the projects, poetry. So we've got people that do. We work with this organization called Honoring Our Rivers that does a poetry writing anthology each year. So we get kids out there writing about what they see out in the environment, writing about their local river. We're doing artwork for that, doing research on it. So, you know, it's all types of skills that students are going to gain from
Well,
from
that
working
is
on these
diverse
programs.
skills. Bringing
Yeah.
in
Like this
poetry.
one Trevor from Clackamas High School, roses are red, violets are blue. I like the forest, I hope you do too. And if by chance you disagree, well, you're wrong. Save the trees. He's a future tree hugger for
Yeah.
sure.
For sure, yeah.
It goes on and on, but I just thought that was, they're out there and they're putting it to, I didn't think of it till you mentioned that. Art, it's a science obviously, but it's also an art too.
You know, you asked how much they had taken
Oh,
away.
you found a spot. huh?
Yeah, it looks to me like almost 400,000 pounds of trash removed. 2 million, almost 2.5 million square feet of invasive species cleared. That's awesome. 28,400 native trees and shrubs planted, and 13,500 students educated about environmental issues. And 37,765 volunteers donated over 115,000 hours of work to help us accomplish all that. And that's kind of awesome. And then I see they have a citizenship acknowledgement of volunteers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and we just presented those awards at the end of last month. So we had 4 different citizenship award winners in different categories. So I mentioned Steve Meisen out in Westland, who had that Burnside Park where we removed all the ivy. So we awarded him our individual volunteer award. We had a great educator out at the coast, Peter Walzak, who did environmental education for years and years for the Neoconi School District.
Wow.
We gave him our educator award. For our business award, we presented that to Fred Meyer, who is just wonderful about bringing their volunteers out to the coast for the beach cleanup for years and years.
And they provide a lot of foundation money too.
Yes, and so they're a big financial sponsor of Solve as well. And then our community group was the Seaside Beach Buccaneers. And so these are, they do, I mentioned the 4th of July, so they clean up after the Seaside 5th of July, Seaside 4th of July.
The big 5th of the July.
Yes, yes. So they have a huge, everyone goes out to Seaside and watches the fireworks and lights off fireworks, and it is quite the extravaganza. But you come back the next morning and the beach it's looking a little rough when you show up at 8 a.m. There's people
like all the
camped
intersections
out
in
and
Portland.
coolers. Yeah, you got coolers everywhere and firework debris. But these guys, these Buccaneers, they dress up as pirates, hand out bags in the 4th of July parade for folks to clean up, and they're up bright and early, 7:30 on the next morning. And you would be amazed. The beach is trashed at 7 a.m. By 9 a.m. it's spotless. You wouldn't even know anything happened. Everything's been picked up. We get about 500 volunteers out there. They pick up a good chunk of that trash is picked up that day, like 5,000 pounds, I think, each year. So they were our citizenship award for community group, and just
I think some people are just satisfied to just come out, help pick up, and disappear.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This your motto. It's our nature to volunteer. I love that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because our nature to do a lot of things, but it's also our nature to be in society and to try to participate and contribute. And what does it mean by Clean Water Services?
Yeah, so Clean Water Services is one of our sponsors.
Oh, that's a group.
Yeah. So that's the
right.
water utility in Washington County, actually, that provided those trees from their nursery. So they've provided a lot of the funding for our Green Team program out in Washington County and let us involve those students there.
As well as Water Environmental Services.
Yeah,
and
so that's
all
a similar organization in Clackamas County. They fund that Rock Creek work that we talked about earlier, actually.
Well, you've been doing this
is really
45 years, so you've made some good connections over
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're lucky. I give trainings on how to lead these volunteer events all the time, and when I'm talking to folks, I really let them know that we're so lucky in Oregon that there are so many organizations that are willing to help out and support. So, I mean, you mentioned Friends of Trees, every park department all over Oregon. So I work with Ashland Parks and Rec. They got a great volunteer coordinator there. Salem Parks and Rec, great volunteer coordinator.
So you work out of all those cities.
And they're just Bend has a great volunteer. City of Bend volunteer coordinator Cheryl Howard that does a big invasive removal project out there, and like the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, just the State Marine Board. They all want to get folks involved. When it would be easy enough to say, we can't help you. Figure it out on your own. No, they say, hey, how can we help? How can we help support your volunteer work? So it's really great.
That's amazing. It's just.
And it's all over the state. Is there much going on, like in say Baker and Ontario and on the far other side of the state, which is almost desert? So
Yeah, we do have some good projects. What is it, in Hermiston, I think it is. They're doing, working on the Umatilla River out there and doing a cleanup project. I run the Adopt a River program for the state, where folks adopt, kind of like adopt a highway. You adopt 2 miles of your favorite river, you go out and clean it up twice a year for 2 years. And yeah, we were working with a woman out on the Umatilla in Hermiston, and she's out picking up trash out there on a regular basis. The Powder River, the river out in Pendleton, Bend. Yeah, so we got a lot of work. We don't have as many projects out in that area as we'd like. We'd like to have more frequent so that people can just get involved.
Population's not dense.
So yeah, there's not as many people, so it's a little trickier. But actually, for our focus, we're just putting together our annual plan for next year, and one of the key focuses is increasing projects outside the Portland metro kind of valley area. So
how would you increase that?
I think it's outreach. It's getting the word out to folks that don't see us on a regular basis that we can provide support for this. But yeah, it's getting into maybe some of the youth groups. Our office is 2 doors down from the Boy Scouts of America office, so working with them to get the scout troops in these areas. But yeah, oftentimes the schools are kind of the way to get kids involved, especially in smaller communities where the school is really the heart of the community. You know, getting them involved.
Yeah, I would think that would have to be it, because like you don't have the saturation of media and well, satellite, but then that's so much as that is distant, it's not local, and you don't have a saturation with the internet either. So so I can see how schools would be a major PTA maybe or something.
Yeah. And we work with water. You mentioned that you had interviewed the Johnson Creek Watershed Council recently, and so we work with watershed councils all over the state, and so they're really great, even in some of these smaller communities that usually they have like one staff person, or half a staff person maybe. So at least that's one person you can work with to get folks involved.
You know, Grant High was never, years ago, was like I say, a place where you just throw your debris all over. You go by there now, they got a garden out in front. There is no way they would have put a garden out there years ago. This is just something recently. In other words, it becomes the caring. And recently I guess they got word that you have trash and debris throwing all over the neighborhood. And so they sent people out not only to pick up that, but to go and talk to the neighbors and say, we're going to try to
Send the diplomats out.
Yeah, they sent out diplomats. So
well, it's like you mentioned, it's people are doing things that they've never done before, and you drive down the street, and it seems like every fourth house has a raised bed in it. And I was wanting to put one in this last year, and I decided I was just going to have to buy it because it was easier. My God, there's 1,000 people that are making a living off of that, which means there's that many people that are building these things in their yards. And container gardening and raised bed gardening, that is a connection to the land that. I was near an apartment today, and they had a big garden in the side of the apartment, and the pathways they were gardening
and
along.
the people there are working with it?
Yeah, these folks are, I think, Russians or Ukrainians, and if I know folks of other countries when they first get here, I know a lot of the Asian people will be waiting for the chestnuts and the walnuts to fall, and most of people of European descent that have been here for a few generations. They go down to McDonald's or to 7-Eleven. So there's that whole other culture thing that is going on, and it's good to see that things have come around full circle, and it's going the other direction. With people that have been here for generations that are seeing that, wow, we can plant seeds, and we can clean this area up. We don't have to be ashamed of it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are doing the food not lawns sort of movement,
Right.
getting rid of their lawns and doing plants, and some people are even taking it kind of a step further and doing meadowscaping, where they get rid of their lawn and put in like a native flowers and native grasses and kind of make it a very natural native area in their front yard. So like great wildlife habitat and things. Or you mentioned the garden at Grant High School. We work with a lot of schools to do not only food gardens, but to kind of add something to it where you do like a native plant demonstration garden. So all those plants we mentioned earlier that we plant, you kind of plant those next to the garden, and so people can see, these are our native trees, these are our native shrubs, this is what an Oregon grape actually looks like and out there. So
when it's not covered by ivy.
Yep.
we don't see many of them. You really don't. It may be our state, what is vegetable? What is it?
Well, it's a state flower, I guess.
State
Isn't that
flower.
what
Yeah,
you
Oregon
said?
grape's the state flower. Yeah, you don't see the flowers are only out kind of in the spring.
And they're really
yellow
nondescript,
flowers,
actually. It's kind of
they're
odd
not
that they
flashy
would choose
flowers.
that, but because there's just little yellow things down in there. Yeah, and you see them on the big taller ones. Mahonia, I think, is the name for them, and they're a very useful plant. The roots can be used for salves and ointments and different things, and there's so much out there. Do you do any of that? Are you teaching medicinal and?
Yeah, that's actually a part of the Green Team program. They do a kind of ethnobotany unit on that. They're able to do a little bit more of that. On our kind of general volunteer projects, we don't have as much time to integrate that into it, but we'd like to. But yeah, I think it's like the cedar, like cedar trees, all the different ways cedar trees were used by native peoples and things. So they learn all about that.
Well, I count myself in this. It is ridiculous. There's so many people, if they didn't have the stores, they'd starve to death. And there's so much you can eat out there, from fresh, the early new fern growth to so many different things you can eat and
Yeah, all
live
the
on.
nettles, dandelions.
Yeah, there's so much out there, and some of them are healthier and more nutritious than the things that we, spend money for. And not so much that young people should be going out living off the land, but to realize, that those are there and that connection. That what was it? Green Spaces
Green
program.
Team. Yeah, the Green Team. program,
Green
yeah.
Team. That's great.
Yeah.
That's opening up kids' minds to something that has been lost.
And I think it's a way to get to their parents. They go home and then they talk to their parents.
Yeah.
What did you do today? I learned about all the plants that I can eat in the forest and how important these plants are. And so it's kind of like that's why they. I used to work for the Red Cross, and when you're teach kids fire safety and earthquake safety, you teach it to the kids and that's a way also to get to the parents to go home. So it's kind of the same idea.
And then the kids can say to their parents, "What did you do today?"
Yeah.
Get them down there.
Yeah.
Out there.
Why aren't you recycling that can there?
Before we get too further, we're down to like almost 8 minutes, so you might mention that event again.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely want people to know about the Family Volunteer Day event. It's coming up on Saturday, September 23rd. Most of the events are 9 to 1. I think some are 10 to noon, a little shorter. And so we've got 5 different events. You go to the website or give us a call. Cornelius, Portland, Troutdale, those are on. And so we're really looking for anybody who can go and volunteer, of course, even individuals. But that we are trying to get a kind of a special day to go out. Bring your kids out, bring your wife, husband out, and volunteer as a family. And then we have our Team Up program has tree planting events that. As I mentioned, people love tree plantings, and so you do tree plantings here during the rainy season. So it's kind of tough to get out there in the rain, but that's when the plants grow the best, and it's kind of the best time.
That's
to
when
plant
they'll
them. They get the
survive.
water,
You don't
and that's
want
when they'll
to
survive,
plant
yeah.
them in June, unless there's water available. They won't make it.
No, so that's so those are every Saturday on our website as well. But we have opportunities, throughout the week. You can call if those don't work out for you and you want to go out and volunteer, and give us a call and let us know. And then actually, I brought along the Give Guide here. It's the Willamette Week's kind of holiday giving issue that they have, and so they were nice enough to put us in that this year. So we're asking for donations through the Give Guide, and you can make a small donation to solve, and they get a free cup of coffee from Boyd's Coffee for donating, and I think they give out a free kind of prize pack. So
Well, these
it's a good thing
hurricanes
to
and
look in as
tsunamis
well.
would give us a break. People are, having to take care of so much that's going on,
know.
and because of these storms. And I know that everybody seems to be supporting that. People I know people that do canvassing, and it makes a difference that they're able to get donations for whatever they're canvassing for. When something like this is going on, all you got to do is text your phone, and it's attached to your phone bill. Just really painless until you pay it, of course.
Yeah, well, it's just great. It's a great way to, if you can't volunteer, you can give. If you can't give, you can volunteer.
So many
do
ways.
both. So it's a great way to get involved and help the organization out.
I had some sentences here that as to why what you're doing is so important. It says the Chesapeake Bay suffers horrific pollution from the Potomac River running right through the middle of Washington, D.C. Once rich with fisheries, oyster beds, and ample bird life, the bay struggles under poisonous pesticides, endless container trash, plastics, fertilizer, petroleum, and industrial runoff from upstream abusers. While our U.S. Congress watches the polluted Potomac River right beneath its windows, it fails to pass a meaningful 10-cent deposit return container law to thwart those who toss bottles, cans, and plastic containers anywhere and everywhere on the landscape. Unfortunately, wildlife, not knowing what to do with plastics and unable to avoid poisons, suffer horrible deaths from plastic stuffing up their gullets. What a bummer. And that's why what you're doing is important.
For sure, there's still work to be done, and that's why we're still
yeah.
out there volunteering. But it used to be the litter problem. Used to be a lot worse. With I think, as you mentioned, people used to just throw stuff out their window of their cars. They drove by and
Or empty
and
their
now it's-
ashtrays.
yeah, or
and
things
piles.
like that. And luckily, the kind of obvious stuff isn't as bad anymore. Now it's kind of either the inadvertent, the wind's blowing your
Sure.
trash out of your trash can, or maybe kids that haven't quite gotten the message yet that are still littering. But
Well, it's going to take public opinion to stop
still
that
gonna-
type of activity.
Yeah.
This,
So
this lady you mentioned, certainly more than one, that cleaned up part of or maybe 2 miles of the side of a river. You ask yourself, where did this come from? How did this get here? Did somebody just throw it like that? It's hard to believe there's like 2 different sides trying to work out and get together, and there's only one right side.
Yeah, to clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
Like Winona LaDuke says, don't make a new mess until you clean up the old mess.
Oh, okay.
So at least get that
yeah,
part done. So,
That's right.
so we're down to about less than 4 minutes now. So you might want to take a little bit, a minute or two to kind of talk a little bit more about what your organization is. And we've been talking about it, but just kind of in a thumbnail of it. Because people cruising through, they might have just tuned in.
I'll just mention again our mission. So SOLV's been around for 45 years, started in 1969 by Governor Tom McCall. And the issues at the time were really, the litter that we've been talking about, people throwing it out their window, and then vandalism, so a lot of graffiti and things like that. And the litter is still definitely an issue, as we've talked about, but these new issues have come up with invasive plants and a lack of non-native plants, and so that's why we changed our name from Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism. Added that E, evolving into this new organization, really this focus on planting trees and restoring riparian areas. And so, we're kind of a new, refreshed organization in that way, approaching kind of the 30th anniversary of our beach cleanups and the 25th anniversary of our big Earth Day event that'll be coming up on April 26th this year. And our mission is to bring Oregonians together, young and old, new Oregonians, people who've been here for generations, rich and poor, people who don't interact, bring those folks together to improve the environment. Getting out there, solving these environmental problems, and then building a legacy of stewardship, trying to get folks to care about the environment for the long term.
Sure.
So we can get to the heart of some of these
Well, as
issues.
they improve the environment, they improve themselves, too.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. People really enjoy, when we have great opportunities to get involved, either volunteering at these Saturday events, leading the volunteer event. So if you've got a place that collects a lot of trash in your area, or your favorite beach, or favorite river that maybe you fish on and you want to pick up trash there, we're there to help you do that. We've got in-office volunteers that come into our office and help us deal with all the fun paperwork and things like that. We've got ambassadors that go out and do things like this, or go present to groups, or do tabling displays. And then we've got just a great pool of donors that donate their financial resources as well. So just really easy to get involved. Go to that webpage, www.solveoregon.org.
Right, it was right up there on the screen.
Or give us a
minute
call,
ago.
503-844-9571, and we'll be sure to help you out.
One other question: mostly people need to bring their own cars and get down there to the beach themselves. Okay.
Yeah, so we do help a little bit with carpooling to get to the beach, but there's plenty of projects around that you can access on public transportation as well, and so we can help connect folks to that resource.
Okay. Well,
So we got about a little over a minute here.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great to hear
Yeah.
all this. I know you folks did a lot, and I'm like everybody else. Oh, Solve, yeah, they do the beach thing, but there's so much else.
that's right.
And even though we all know you do a lot else, didn't really know what it was. And so if someone sees something that needs to be done, if they don't feel up to doing it themselves, they can call your organization up, and then maybe you folks can try to organize something to do it, whether it's invasives or, they see the stream needs trees or whatever.
Yeah, and we'll hope to see you guys out coming Saturday, right out there planting trees with us.
The weekend
hopefully
before
your viewers will
Thanksgiving.
join us as well. Yeah, that'd be great.
No, it's 2 weekends, or is it one?
It's the 23rd.
Yeah, I think it's
Thanksgiving's
23rd,
the 28th.
And then Thanksgiving's the 28th.
Yeah, so it's kind of a kick. I think it's kind of a kickoff too for the holiday.
Okay.
Giving back.
Time passes
Organization.
pretty fast. Okay, and we want to thank the crew very much.
For the
And we're
first
going
hour.
to go to a
So we're gonna
short
run.
break now.
We're gonna do the playback time. Did that get written up?
no,
It
it
didn't
did
get
not.
written up. So I guess I should introduce the video.
Okay.
In harmony with the. Were we getting a message there? And in harmony with the 11/11/11, when you have the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th, you know, when Armistice Day. Oh, he did have that. Now, is
He
that
did
this?
do it.
Oh, he did do it. All
He
right.
did do it.
That's what that knock was about. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll just, while that's up there, I can just
We're it.
mention that the Armistice Day was just happened. That was also, now it's called Veterans Day. And I have a video. It's too long to play the whole thing, but I think in honor of our veterans, we'll go ahead and play that. I think it's called Coming Home. It's some veterans who are having issues with integrating what they saw and what they did. And they come home and they try to integrate that with relationships with other people, the poetry, and they write and express the pain. And it's kind of a cathartic thing where they really help each other out. And just like we're talking about, bringing people together. It's the same thing right there. And so when this is it's through playing right now. So this is in the DVD player. So we'll go into this and we'll just finish off the hour with this. And we've got to remember our veterans. And we'll see you next month. Pushing buttons in there, he'll get the right ones. Here we go, Two Shoes Production.
Oh.
On the suicide bomber. I know how I was supposed to feel, but I still can't muster any wry laughter for this man whose corpse and car bomb are now cool, still, silent. I can see it all when I sleep. Limbs torn from torso like puzzle pieces, uncoiled entrails tumbling out the belly. It isn't true. Nothing was left whole. His clothing, white cotton streaked with blood and shit, clung to the mangled steel in strips, like bandages dressing a giant metal wound. And all around, the pulp of him. And I think of the body of my own son as he grows in the shadow of Fort Bragg, Pope Air Force Base, Camp Lejeune. I think of him asleep in peace, for he has no nightmares of war to interfere. I want to still the gunfire, the bombs, the soldiers' chants, and say, "Hush now, world. A child is sleeping." And if you must use words like martyr and infidel or hero and enemy, then whisper them. It's also desperately fragile, so easy to destroy. A clotted mess of protein in the bottom of the pan. A brown-red stain soaking into dust.
You too.
It's so beautiful here.
Yeah.
700 pounds.
Jake. Nice to meet you, sir. Jake. My wife, Christy. Christy.
Welcome here to our little house of song and conversation, of stories and poetry. What we're going to do here is make a temporary community. And it's a community based on welcome, based on the attempt to return. And particularly in this culture, there's been a kind of lapse of memory about the fact that people need to be welcomed back and need to be assisted to return and to find a place back in the community. The warriors are supposed to get home. They're not supposed to remain in the war, not left over there and not left out here. That's the tradition of all cultures, the honoring of the warriors, the welcoming back, and the return of them back into culture as meaningful, valuable citizens who know something about life and know something about death, and therefore they have wisdom. Does this make any sense? Yeah? And I want to say one thing about, in the big arc of this week or whatever it is, we'll work on our welcome and our return here, and then we're going to go into the town of Ashland, to the main theater of the Shakespeare Festival, which they have offered to us, where people are preparing to welcome everyone here back. They're waiting for us to bring them something that allows them to help make the healing and make the welcome. And so that's on Monday evening. Between now and then, we have the language of poetry, we have the language of stories, the language of songs, and the language of ceremonies in order to find our way into the things that need to be said.
When I first got back, I was pretty depressed. Missing eyeballs, I can't see, I'm deaf. And I've in really good shape, you know, had a lot going for me.
He was there 3 months and was blown up by an IED on his 22nd birthday, May 26.
Well, I served in Afghanistan, 06-07, Army. I'm getting ready to deploy again. I'm gonna be in Iraq soon. So, I don't know, like I came home and they just like flung me out back into the world, and it was, I don't know, like you're just kind of broken.
When I turned 18, I went to Vietnam in 1969, and you know, there's a lot of young guys here, and I'm just glad that you're in here looking for help. You know, people down there downtown, it's the same way it was 40 years ago. They don't understand. You can't walk at somebody on the street and try to explain to them what the hell you were just doing, because they'll either tell you you were right or tell you you were wrong, but they don't understand, you know.
I joined the military in 2000 as a soldier of the world. I'm still a Dutch citizen. I don't know if I will become an American or not. I don't know. Iraq. I don't know what else to say.
Thanks for your words. You know, we're walking through blood. We're walking through blood. I mean, I acknowledge that we have never done this before. I've worked with veterans of different kinds from different battles, but never with the idea of trying to form and fashion and then bring to a nearby town a sense of how to welcome and invite them into the welcoming. I come from a tradition that mixes traditions, borrows, steals. In the course of the time we're here, we'll borrow and use different traditions. One language that we're going to use is ceremony. You experienced it when you came in, the smudging with sage, which is a tradition of this land here. Simple cleansing ceremonies. All of them are intended to be healing and welcoming and inviting. And since this is a conversation, I want to say, does anybody have anything to say?
My name is Deborah Joan Guerrero. And I'm trying to control myself. I'm having a really hard time because you say that you're borrowing these traditions, but I just feel it's really hard for me right now. If you want to talk about traditions, have a traditional person here. You know what? I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. I am not trying to offend, hurt, cause any more pain. You know, our people suffered. It just kind of feels like it's marginalized, you know?
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. But if the old traditions can't be used to heal the new wounds, then we're stuck with what's happening in modern culture. And that seems to be wounding everybody. So
what I think is, you know, everybody in here is my brothers and my sisters. And I just don't think that we should be talking about whether we need permission from anybody. We are our own tribe, and we are going to get our own permission to bring ourselves out of it. That's just the way it is.
We just came into the ceremony without having any dialogue about, okay, we're going to do this in a respectful way. And that's all I'm asking for. It's just some respect. And that's the one thing that this nation does not understand, is respect. Because what we're trying to heal, and for me, is not just what happened to me in Iraq. It's what's happened to me my whole life. This is getting a little deep for me right at the moment. I think that my husband and my son and I, our feelings for coming here were to heal as a family. We want to respect differences, but right now it feels a little deep.
I wasn't really prepared for what happened here tonight, and not to step on anybody's toes, but I didn't come here for a lesson in racism or anybody else's political agenda. I came here to try and get myself back to some way, shape, or form of who I was before I left.
Perhaps a lot of my healing has to do around racism, because racism happened very deeply while I was stationed in Iraq from my commander and from my company. And so it's very, very wounding, because people may not think that it's important, but when you're standing there in uniform and they called enemy territory Indian country, and you're in that goddamn uniform, standing there listening to that bullshit, telling me I'm still the fucking enemy. Racism matters. So thank you for letting me be here and for voicing this.
thank you. Thanks for the good words, for the honest words. Thanks for the tears. Thanks for the respect, willingness to stay. Try to return the respect back. Thank you.
You know, I've been thinking about, I was a medic in Vietnam in 1970-71, so I was seeing the rapid disintegration of American involvement in Vietnam. You know, I was seeing wounded being flown in, and I was seeing the homicides, the suicides, the rampant heroin addiction, just the entire breakdown of the U.S. military. Okay, and my greatest realization about the Vietnam War was I was the enemy in Vietnam. Not the NVA, not the VC, not the communists. Because when I left Vietnam, we knew that war was bullshit.
I'm telling you, I wasn't the enemy. I was killing the enemy. The enemy was trying to kill me. And I was killing the enemy for the Vietnamese people. And the Vietnamese people, they appreciated that. Everyone I met appreciated that. I'm offended by what you said. Because what you said, you're saying about the people that are over there fighting right now. You know, you're saying that they're the enemy. And they're not. They're trying to help those people. Regardless of what you think, regardless of what our government is trying to pull over there. I don't know what they're trying to pull, but we're over
If you're in
there.
a war, you better kill the bad guys, or you know what? They're going to kill you. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. When you're in the middle of a room, taking a room, if you don't shoot the son of a bitch in the head, you know what? You ain't coming home today. I served under Clinton, under Bush, and anybody else when my 20 years was there. Not because I like any of those son of bitches, or don't like them, because they're the commander-in-chief. Right or wrong, the soldiers on the ground don't make policy. I ran a whole base, 2,000 folks. I don't make the policy. My job was to get these men and women home, and by God, we did it.
There's a basic agreement. I'm going to give you the equipment you're going to need to do that job that you put your hand up to do.
I think they're making the best that they can possibly do. They've moved
Basic equipment would be walkie-talkies.
They're $2,000 for the phones we had
You're
to buy.
not giving walkie-talkies to someone who's running a convoy?
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Channel hoppers.
We had to borrow.
Excuse me for a minute. Okay, let's try to come back into the room a little bit. Yeah, I mean, what happens is the war comes in. the war comes in, and the different experiences of it come in. And I just want to say how thankful I am for everybody for just speaking up. For, you know, whatever anybody says, my sense is get it in here in the room. And as long as we keep breathing and maintain some respect and don't reject someone simply because they said something I don't agree with or I don't like, we might be able to find a new way. There's the old underlying idea was called initiation. First step, you separate from everybody you know, and you go into an experience that you are not prepared for, and you learn stuff that you never intended to learn and wouldn't learn if it was your choice.
Should learn.
Yeah. And then you walk through horror and walk through blood. That's called the second part, the ordeals. And that follows you home and lives inside you, inside dreams, inside memories. There is a third step that is supposed to happen in order to make those other two things tolerable and to give them some kind of meaning. And that's called the return, where you are received by people who understand the damage that you suffered for the benefit of others and understand that you have knowledge that most people who haven't been through it have.
That's the ticket I want to punch, the bus I want to get on.
Yes. And here's what happens.
Serious, I'm not bad. I'm there.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. Here's what happens. When the return doesn't happen, everybody repeats step one and step two. Isolate because no one can understand me, and then agitate because I can't get rid of this feeling. And so I just want to keep in the room the idea we're looking for step three. And if we don't find pieces of it, we do one and two, because I know someone in the room is saying, well, I'm just going to go fucking get into my bed and fuck everybody, because that's step one, isolate. Step two is I'm getting pissed at everybody because I'm being put back into my pain. And the only way to stop it and alter it is step three. And so the welcome is here in the room somewhere, if we can find it. And I'm saying we have to reinvent it because it is not happening anywhere anymore. Thank you everyone for coming. Blessings on everyone. Find a good sleep tonight, catch a dream, get up in the morning. We'll come back together and we'll find a way to stay together.
You got it. You got it. I'll hang on to it for you. Yeah, you too.
Want to start a song, so join in if you can. This is a song from West Africa, from the Dagara people. And this is a song that simply says, praise to the earth, praise to the earth, praise to the earth. That's what it's saying. Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo. You want to try it? Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo, Azima wo. Thanks for singing. Starting to sound good. You know, people think about everything, and a lot of people say, when it's too big or too heavy to carry, we need a song. Some things can't be carried all by themselves, you know, and some arguments never stop. But you put them in a song, and things change a little bit. There's many, many ways to welcome. And one I thought of this morning, a few years back, we started working with refugees from Sudan. I don't know if you've heard of the lost boys, lost youth of Sudan. And so simply what they would do, could I do it with you? They would just come over to each other and then they would go, hey, hey, ha, ha, hey, hey, ha, ha. But you have to do it too. Oh. Hey, hey, ha, ha, hey, hey, ha, ha. You don't have to do it that hard. Sorry. Man.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm kidding you. It's okay. It's all right, it's all right. So, are you ready to do this? What we do is just stand up and turn to someone, and then after one person, go to another person. All right? Hey, hey.
When I got out of the Army, I was angry, really angry. I didn't think I had, battle fatigue because, I made it through the battle. I made it home, and I was stuffing it. I was keeping it inside, and I wasn't letting it out.
And when I came home too, I pretty much threw everybody out of my house, and I found myself very alone, and actually preferred it that way. And I couldn't even go to a Walmart because after about the third visit, if I had a refund, they didn't even ask for the receipt. Just give it to her and let her get out of here.
When I finally came home from Afghanistan, I had a really, really hard time. Because in the military, you're trained to never, ever let anybody know that you're having difficulty. You kind of emotionally shut down a little bit, like there's a switch in the back of your head and you turn it off and you just go, I'm not gonna deal with it now. And then you come home and it just, comes down on you like a freaking ton of bricks. And what do? You do everything you shouldn't be doing. You get drunk for 4 months, and you can't talk to anybody. You can't, your civilian friends, did you kill anybody? You're like, fuck you, just.
In those early years, there was no mention of PTSD. I don't think he even knew that there was such a thing. I didn't know of such a thing. Nobody had ever heard of it. So I just thought, this guy is just really moody and has a quick temper. The hardest thing, I think, is waking up every morning and not knowing which man you're going to be facing that day. The moods, the anger, the rages that would come out of nowhere.
It took a it took a traffic accident. I was knocked through the back of my pickup window and then through the front window. And when I was laying on the side of the road, I was going between Nam and here, and that's when everything came back. There was a whole lot of shit that I didn't even remember that came back. And I didn't tell anybody because I was, it scared me. I was using marijuana, I was drinking, I took sleeping pills, anything to get my mind off of the stuff that came back. And so I let it hit home that, okay, yeah, you're fucked up, man. And my counselor said, you're so fucking depressed, you depress me. I'm not kidding.
Kind of makes me angry to feel like the questions and the answers are the same. I had the same questions when I came back. How am I supposed to do this right? So I go to the VA. There's pills to help you do it right. But again, the pills just felt so altering. And I'm tired of fucking crying, So, am I supposed to cry? Because I am.
I just want to say that it takes real courage to cry. That's where the real courage is. Believe me, I was a drill sergeant. I did not cry. I did not cry, and it took me a long time. And now I can cry at a drop of a hat. There's no hurry. When I started crying. I thought I was gonna cry till I was 60, you know? Just didn't think that it was ever gonna stop, and still feels like that sometimes. That I just wake up and that's all I can do. Don't be so in a hurry to like stop it.
We as Vietnam vets, we understand what you're going through and we're here to help. I just think that you should keep letting it out. Don't worry about it. You guys are young, and so you got a lot more years to work out, work it out, get to know how to get through it.
One of the ways to heal is to find out what our gifts are and begin practicing giving them, because then a person has value no matter what anybody thinks. And so it isn't enough to give someone drugs. It's not even enough to say thank you. The gift of the person has to be recognized and polished and gotten ready to give in order for healing to occur. That's why we say on Monday we're going down to town in order to give poetry. We'll polish up our language and we give that golden stuff, even if we're talking about the rotten stuff, if you get my meaning. Seems time to get the writing started. Bring the writing into it. I think of it as poetry, but that doesn't mean you have to spell it right, get the grammar right, have the ends of the line rhyme or anything else. We're using that word to mean the speech of the soul. And so any way anyone wants to write is just fine. It can be a story kind of writing or more like common poetry. It can be all curses. It just doesn't matter. The idea is to get words onto the page and see what comes out. And copy from someone else if you want. Just kidding. All right, so we have some time. We have some time now to hear some poems. We'll have lots of time to write and to read, but just to get some poems in the room before lunch. So who has a poem? Yeah, I know it's hard. Come Monday, we're going to be in front of people. We have to get used to it.
From the time that Rory got hurt, I kept a daily journal. And I've tried to piece it back together. Later in intensive care, when I was allowed at my son's bedside, I once again turned ice cold. I saw the long, horrible gash stitched across the place where his right eye had been. His left eye, swollen and crusted with blood, had been injured by shrapnel too. My son would be blind. I counted 60 staples from ear to ear where his scalp had been cut open for surgery. I noticed he still had dirt and blood under his nails. I could see the tiny pieces of shrapnel under his skin, cuts and abrasions. Why was he so sweaty and dirty? I wanted to bathe him. I wanted every particle of Iraqi dirt off him. Didn't he deserve to have the blood and the blood of his buddies washed off of him? I hadn't bathed my son since he was a small boy. I remembered how I would lift him out of the tub slippery and wet, and I would hug him and towel him off. And Rory would say, "Mom, leave some skin on."
Do we have more poems? There we go.
One, Niels, your grandma died. Mom, I'm getting deployed. 3, please put your M16s in the overhead compartments with the muzzle facing to the rear of the plane. 12, release chaff. Fuck, we haven't even arrived yet and they're already getting shot at. 11, alone. People say I'm not, but where are they then? 14, I'm hurt. I'm weak. 19, Where have all my tears gone?
I cut my hair off the day before I left for basic training. I hated it. I looked like a boy. But all my friends said, you don't. It looks easy to take care of. Nobody ever really said it looks good. Basic was all girls, and I figured out really quick this hair was the best way to do it, so I actually got it cut shorter. I was given a new identity. I'm not Mandy anymore, I'm Williams. There's no gender in a last name. And there is no gender in the Army. We are soldiers. At AIT, I started to let my hair grow out. And then the senior drill instructor reminded me I'm not a soldier, I'm a girl, in his own special way. I was glad to get out of AIT, but my first duty as a non-gendered soldier was to get an abortion. December 27th, 1994, 18 and a half years old, 6 months away from home.
Well, Dan, we toughed it out.
What?
I toughed it out and put the shorts on.
I don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, I gotta walk here to here so it's warm.
Look at those white legs. Is that why you did it? Those pure white legs?
That's
Oh, man, that's scary.
I know it is.
Do you have some longer socks than that?
Get big socks up to here, yeah.
No, I meant at least halfway up, maybe. You know.
So I used to be really, really super Catholic, and I was an altar server, and so sometimes I still pray in Latin. So there's a Latin prayer that's in it. And the translation is, Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, have mercy on us. Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, have mercy on us. Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, grant us peace. Dear God in heaven or wherever, perhaps because my Humvee rolls through the valleys of the shadow, Tagab, Jalalabad, Kabul, or perhaps because this land looks so much like the picture Bible of my childhood, I look for you in swirling dust. From minarets, they call out your greatness, but the explosions drown out their prayers, seeming greater still. The mortars steal their children, the rockets crumble men. The bombs rain down, fire from above. The mines, like geysers, fire from below. And in the streets, the fires are burning. We speak of firefights, firepower, fighting fire with fire. I plead with you for cleansing fire. The candles burning on every altar, smoldering incense sending out its tendrils. The Cherokee and Navajo burned sacred tobacco to find you. I, for my part, flick my 17th cigarette against a bush, hoping it may ignite and you might speak. The brush catches for a moment, crackles, then dissolves into silence, like static on a radio. Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi miserere nobis, how copy over? Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi miserere nobis, how copy over? Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem. The silence on your end thunders in my skull, so deafeningly loud and clear.
Stories are the oldest school. Stories are the oldest school. In Ireland, the story is told like this. When people are living in a good way, there is a center that holds them all together. And in the center is everything that people need, because people bring all their gifts there and everybody gets what they want. When the center breaks apart, or as they say in Ireland, when the center cannot hold, all of the things that are needed are now existing at the edge. And then if each person was just go to the edge that looks darkest to them, a place that scares them but attracts them, and begin to work there, they will pick up a thread of knowledge and a thread of healing. And if each person or enough people do that, and then all they have to do is go back to the center with their thread, and the center is made from the efforts of individuals. No one has to hold the world, no one has to solve the problem, everybody just has to pull the thread of their own healing back to the center. After we keep working with our poetry, our feelings, our stories, then we can go down into Ashland and we can place all of that stuff in the middle of that village and invite everybody in.
I have no idea where it is. Can we go like the day before instead of having an audience there and going into a completely different environment that we are not even familiar with?
The plan so far is to go in early on that day, on Monday.
Just give me a guesstimate of what length of time you're looking for our speech or talk to be.
We don't really know. I mean, one of the difficulties of this is if we make too much of a formula, we wind up leaving things out that need to be present. Yes.
So we're today, and as of yesterday, like when we wrote the poems, we're rough drafting and brainstorming today, and then are we right now trying to compile?
We'll do all at the same time.
All at the same time.
So that actually you can read right now if you want to.
I'll take a shot at this.
And you can sit or you can stand.
I'm a cold, non-empathetic person. I have very few feelings. I'm not usually calm like this. I took some clozapam today because y'all got me a little emotional and stuff, and I had to bring myself down some. I don't talk much about my family and stuff because I came home, I pretty much severed almost every tie in the world. My son was going to Fort Lewis training at the Ranger Battalion. My last couple of weeks in Baghdad, I got a call from the Ranger Battalion First Sergeant. He said, well, we can't find him. He went on a pass and he hasn't come back. I made every phone call I could to my former wife and other folks, and they said, yeah, he decided he no longer wants to serve. He wants to go to Canada or somewhere else. And then he gave me a call. It lasted a very short period of time. I said, get your ass back. I talked to your commander and first sergeant. It's going to be okay. They'll forgive you. And you might do a little duty, but you'll do your job. He said, no, Dad, I don't think you understand. I'm not going back. I think the people are stupid. I'm not going to have people who are stupid telling me what to do. And my opinion was a deserter is the lowest of the low. To leave troops, to leave your comrades. How many young men and women I fought for every day so my kids wouldn't do it. I looked them in the eyes and they're not coming home. I just had the most hate I've ever had in my life and betrayal. Well, he never came around to see me again. That was our last conversation. So that's this little story of unforgiveness on my part. Sorry.
And suffering is what we know. Deep down, suffering is what we know. And suffering brings out generosity and it brings out love, if there's a chance. The plan that has developed for this evening is to have what we call a healing pavilion. A number of professional healers in Ashland have volunteered and requested, in a sense, to come out and provide free of charge, no insurance card necessary, various healing treatments. Massage, acupuncture, Feldenkrais, and so on. So we'll convert. What? All right. Well, you were very effective. They heard you. So you can get ready or take medication. So so do both. Acupuncture and medication, interesting combination. All right. So we're going to hear some poems before we write. Jake?
I'm being looked at. Let's do it. Come on, Jake. All right. It's called "This OIF Vet is Heavily Medicated for Your Protection." What you get isn't what you see. If you look closer, you'll see a pharmacy. I swallow down that little tab. It's supposed to keep me from being sad. As it hits my stomach, I feel so soft. You all know it as Zoloft. Here's the short. I take it, I'm not as mean. The docs, they call it clonidine. Scarred, twisted, violent. Anxious I am. Times like this, I call on lorazepam. I've told my story, so I'll take a bow. I hope you all feel safer now.
I don't know. I turned off the alarm. Who needs it? It's 4 o'clock in the morning, January 16th. I shower with him, and he brushes my hair. I put it up according to military regulation. Brown t-shirt, DCU bottoms, identification tags, just in case. How does a mother say goodbye to her 5-year-old child? What kind of goodbye is it? The last goodbye? Maybe. Could be. Maybe not. I don't know. So kiss her while she sleeps and pet her strawberry blonde hair. One last take it all in glance. You turn around. You don't look back, you keep going. You walk out the door. For the last time, maybe. Could be. Maybe not. I don't know.
Andy, I had something real similar before I went to Vietnam. I wasn't really fully comprehending where I was going and what was going to possibly happen. And it wasn't until I was walking up the stairs onto the airplane, and I turned around the last time to look at my parents, and it dawned on me, and it knocked me down almost, that this might be the last time I see my parents, you know. And it goes right along with what you were.
Goodbye is a big word.
I just want to thank a lot of you folks for sharing these things. They're real powerful, a little too powerful for me, and thank you. Thank God I'm here. Good to hear.
Feelings mutual.
Well, I'm close to being a blubbering baby here, so.
We all are.
We all are.
Suck it up.
was a base that had a huge, beautiful lake. And there was like a hotel, everything was all abandoned. But there was areas of Iraq that were gorgeous. I mean,
Tigris
especially
and
around the
Euphrates.
Tigris and Euphrates, just lush, beautiful. But,
Tigris and Euphrates, Mesopotamia.
Right.
Yep.
You begin to like understand.
You think about the Bible stories.
You think about the Bible, the birthplace of Abraham. I mean, this is where it was said that he walked, but then you put it together like, dude, he's one of them.
You guys get any alcohol, beer, anything?
We weren't supposed to, but you could get it.
We tried to make wine out of the fruit juice. Yeah.
They used to issue us 2 beers and 2 Cokes a day, and hot. But you drank it. I mean, it was wet.
Well, you know what we had over there? Remember the fake beer they had? I mean, it's gross.
It's kind of like
disgusting,
olive
and
juice.
It's an insult.
It's kind of like reminded me of tasting olive juice with fizz, kind of. We had your guys' old Flak Fests.
Right, yeah.
We
Same,
had those, yeah.
They just
And then
reused it?
by the time we left, they start issuing, the neck stuff to put around your neck and the crotch cover.
I'll tell you, I feel sorry for you guys having to go back. You don't know when and how many times you're gonna go back. That's just terrible.
I knew I was pissed off when I put on the bandana this morning, because I don't usually wear it anymore. This morning, as I was listening to the teachings, I didn't feel it, but I didn't know how to speak it, because it just felt really white to me. And I'm not here to make anybody feel bad or guilty. This is just the reality. If you want to know why we keep doing the same things over and over, it's because we haven't healed the past. We can't talk about it. It gets too hard. People get uncomfortable. I got news for you. I live uncomfortable every day.
Ellie, can I ask you something? What will it take for you to feel like you've been accepted here, now, today?
I think that what I need is for people to just listen and not question why I'm the way I am, or why I do the things that I do, or what it takes, and why I'm not over it right now. It's like getting over Vietnam, it's like getting over Iraq. But when it comes to talking about race or color or land, God damn, you feel so fucking uncomfortable, and you gotta know the answer right now. Well, if I had the answer, I'd fucking be giving it to you.
But I think the reason people ask that question, when a child stomps its feet on the ground and says, you say, "What's the matter? Tell me what's the matter." You ask the child, "What's going on?"
I am not a child.
I understand.
Stop. I'm asking you to fucking listen.
I didn't finish.
I know. Okay. Neither did I. Okay. I never do.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm not asking you to listen to me with your head, because that's what makes you ask questions. If you're asking questions in your head, that means you're not listening to me.
And do you think I've never experienced anything, Ellie? Ever?
What the fuck? You know what? I am not asking you.
Okay.
When you want to be up here and you want to tell your story, I will sit down and I will listen. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You gotta defend it all the time. I don't want to be defensive. I just want to be heard with your heart. I apologize. I'm just tired. And I just want you to understand. I'm not saying that I feel left out by you all, because it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault here. But if you don't hear me with your heart, then I can't heal. So that's why I'm sitting here. Because I don't want to live like this, not trusting. And this is closer than anything I've ever been because you're all vets. So it's allowed me to do this. So you have a more open door than anybody else. So thank you for listening.
I'm really having some hard feelings going on right now. I'm just trying to understand what we did. I think everybody here respects you, you know, and I don't understand why you don't accept us, you know. We're all here to help each other. And I welcome you. I welcome you home. I'd fight for you in a minute. I'd die for you. And I'm really sorry that you ran into some hateful people, but there's a lot of us that are not hateful and we love you.
I am not Ellie's voice, but I also know how difficult and how emotional these things are for people who are in the middle of experiencing it. Being a woman in the Army. I related to that so much because I know exactly what she's talking about.
It sounds like Ellie is talking from her experience too in Iraq. She feels like she's being treated racially.
Her experience has been different from my experience because she's a woman of color. You know, risking your life for a country that doesn't actually treat you like a full-class citizen, that's a different experience.
Ellie gave us her pain, and we're given our pain. We should be listening to that pain without any criticism. We should be listening. That's what she asked for, was to just listen.
A lot of people on the defensive, and
I just have one thing to say. This is why I didn't want to bring it up. You have to have answers to everything. I can't just say something and let it be. And sit with it for 3 or 4 days. Maybe you might get an answer. But no, I become the conversation. Either I'm a gift or I'm a pain in the ass or I'm whatever. All I asked for was the listening, and I didn't get it. I'm gonna go smoke
Ellie,
now.
Ellie, before you go, one moment, please. Stay here, Laura.
Can I say something?
Okay, one moment, please. Where we are now, I think, the village is looking at darkness and not yet knowing how to bring healing to the middle. Do you get what I'm saying? At least a couple of people are out looking at the dark, trying to figure out what's going on. And I agree with Ellie that in the sense that a listening needs to happen. Certainly a listening has happened. Everybody listening to every word and has been doing that since we got here. I didn't see anybody get cut off until it just started to get confusing now. So that listening is going on. The 3-day listening, I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. Maybe I'm sitting here with the question of what is the right thing to do right now.
I think the right thing to do is to move on. You got a room full of 24 veterans in here with PTSD. I think we're doing pretty damn good.
Well, we're doing great.
We're not killing each other.
And maybe this stuff had to come out,
Hang for 1 second. If we can just stay long enough, I want to suggest that we sing the Earth song. We can suffer a little bit of fragmentation here. And then we can go our various ways. Azima wo Azima wo Azima wo Azima can stand up, please stand up. Does that sound all right? The idea now is to get used to standing in front of a mic and holding a poem. And you just have to find your own way. But one of the tricks is to keep the head up, to hold the poem high enough that your head is up so people can see your expression and so on. So we're gonna need a first poem, I don't know.
Honey, wake up. You're having a nightmare. Damn, that was a